The release of EAFC 24 marks the end of the FIFA series, lasting over 3 decades and almost 40 games. So today I present the entire history of FIFA as an homage to a game series I have spent thousands of hours of my precious life on. I hope you enjoy. The first ever FIFA game was released on the 15th of December 1993 for the Sega Genesis and Game Boy and was called FIFA International Soccer. It featured like nothing, but don't worry, we'll get to the microtransactions and SBCs soon. It had exhibition, tournaments, playoffs, and league. Basically the simplest game physically possible. And it looks completely different to modern FIFA, but it did have 48 national teams, which is more than EAFC 24, which is the most EA thing I may have ever come across. Thanks, EA. EA basically only made this game because of the success of their American football game called John Madden Football, which would eventually become today's Madden series. But to everyone's surprise, it slapped harder than Tobe Jizzle's intro, selling over 400,000 copies in its first 2 weeks and getting really good reviews on top of that. EA had a game on their hands, and they were about to beat this cash cow for all the money it had. FIFA Soccer 95, yes, soccer, came next in late 1994, introducing club sides for the very first time, but they didn't have the licensing rights to the player names, so Paolo Maldini became Paul Michaels. Not quite as exotic really, is it? Either way, the game did really well again, getting a positive review from Mega Machines Sega, which is probably the best company name I have ever heard in my life. And what number comes after 95? That's right, FIFA 96, but this time there's new stuff, like a $3 million budget to work with and its own soundtrack composed by this man, Graham Coleman. Thanks, Graham. It released to become a bestseller in the UK, outperforming everything else and becoming one of the biggest games on the planet. Why was this? Well, one simple reason: licensing. That's right, boys, Paul Michaels is gone, and in his place over 3,000 real players, teams, and leagues have arrived, as well as better commentary, much improved gameplay, and enhanced customization. This is often the game that most OG FIFA players point to as their first, and for good reason. It was innovative in design and brilliant in execution. By 1996's standards, it's about as good as it gets, but it was about to get even better. FIFA 97 featured 2 massive new innovations: actual motion capture to make player movements more realistic, and an indoor football mode which got removed, then made into its own game, then got cancelled and is now back in FIFA. More on that later though. This cover was done by David Ginola, an improvement from last year, which had this guy and this guy, whose names were Owen Sabao and Andy Legg, who are literally just random football players. EA would make the covers far more effective in future releases. FIFA 97 was good. It had new leagues like the Malaysian League, which dissolved a couple of months after the game's release, and commentary by John Motson, which is indicative of this era of FIFA games. What a lovely voice to hear at 2 AM with a controller smashed through your TV screen. John died in early 2023, so he never lived to see the end of the FIFA series, and I don't think anybody realized the influence his voice had on a generation of young FIFA players. You are sorely missed, John. Thank you for your contribution to the lives of millions across the world. After FIFA 97, we don't have FIFA 98. In its place, we have 2 games, which, I'll be honest, I didn't know existed. First is FIFA Road to the World Cup 98, which had a bunch of different cover stars, one of them being David Beckham, who didn't have a great time in 1998 after kicking Diego Simeone of Argentina and getting sent off in a vital game for England. The Three Lions went on to lose that game, and he was scapegoated as the reason they lost the tournament. Sometimes FIFA games can be ironic that the road to the World Cup can be fronted by a man like David Beckham, but I guess some things just come in full circle. But that's almost a decade in the future. The second of the 98 games was the first official World Cup game, World Cup 98. It's not technically a FIFA game, but it's a football game made by EA, so it's a FIFA game to the masses. You gotta cut me some slack, okay? It has minor gameplay improvements over Road to the World Cup 98, but features accurate national kits and was played on the Game Boy, Nintendo 64, and the PlayStation for the second time after Road to the World Cup 98. This is all well and good, but this is still primitive times for the sports gaming genre, so now we move to the future. Welcome to neo-futurism. Outkast just went platinum, Lauryn Hill is #1 on the Billboard charts, and Will Smith just released another project. Some things never change. But in late 1998, off the back of the success of their World Cup game, EA were ready to push the boundaries of mainstream gaming again, with the release of, get ready for this one, FIFA 99. This game removed the indoor football feature for seemingly no reason, and got rid of some of the leagues, like the Malaysian League, but it was a major step up graphically from previous iterations, and featured a custom tournament mode, which is still practically unchanged in modern FIFA. Some things really do never change. But again, this game is iconic. If you ask people what the first ever FIFA was, I guarantee some of them will say FIFA 99, because it is so well known and respected. The cover of Dennis Bergkamp, the crazy gameplay, it's an absolute juggernaut of a game, and the cultural impact was beginning to become evident as game consoles became more accepted from a societal standpoint. However, I believe this is the point point where EA realized they had a cash cow on their hands, and they were about to milk it until dust came out of the others. Because this is the beginning of what I like to call the FIFA Dark Ages. A series of games which impacted the course of FIFA so little that they're hardly even worth mentioning, but for the sake of the video, we're gonna do it. We're gonna go where no man has returned from. We're going to enter the Dark Ages. FIFA 2000 had one major addition, as well as minor gameplay improvements, which can basically be said for every new iteration of FIFA ever created. FIFA 2000 features multiple seasons. That's right, up until this point, you'd have one season of playing with your club, and that's it. Thanks for playing. But now there's promotion, relegation, European qualification, and that's the only major change. Sol Campbell was on the cover in an England jersey and would leave his club Tottenham for rivals Arsenal a year and a half after this game's release, ruining his reputation in Spurs and causing him to become a hero in the red side of North London. Sometimes you can't please everyone. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. FIFA 2001 features the toe muncher Paul Scholes on the cover and was the first FIFA game from the PlayStation 2, but this was definitely in the dark ages of EA's Golden Goose because, to put it simply, nothing changed. It was basically a copy and paste of the previous game with updated teams and kits and slightly better graphics for the new era of console, something indicative of EA's future in the gaming space. Now seems like a good time to talk about sports games as a genre. They're unique to other games because every sports game gets released as a brand new game every year instead of just getting updated. This is because there was no such thing as game updates in the early 90s. You get what the cartridge gives you, so a new game was made every year to keep up with the rapidly shifting world of football. But in a modern gaming landscape, this model serves as a glorified cash grab, with most companies being fully capable of just updating a game and restarting all progress, but choosing not to in favor of their lovely cash cow. After all, why give people something for free when millions of them will happily pay for it regardless? This is what separates sports games from regular games, and no company is more notorious for its love of Benjamins than EA, which gets voted as the most disliked company in America on a near annual basis, it feels like. Some things just never change. So that begs the question, why buy the game in the first place? Why endorse such a money-hungry corporation? And why has no other company taken advantage of this clearly disgruntled audience and created a better game? FIFA Football 2002 featured a few new licenses, such as the Dutch League and the Swiss Pro League, but they did have licensing issues, such as with the Barbados national team, which didn't have player names, but were instead just represented by numbers. Somewhat emblematic of the relationship people perceive between EA and their audience today. Just numbers on a screen. And this was in 2001. They also had this card reward system where if you win a tournament of some sort, you would unlock a star player card, which foreshadows the mode that brought FIFA into the modern era, and simultaneously ruined EA's reputation further. Following this, the company decided to cash in again, releasing 2002 FIFA World Cup, the game, to all consoles, including Xbox for the very first time. It was a reskin of FIFA Football 2002, with most World Cup teams and kits fully licensed for the release, as well as having all-star teams from each continent. You may have noticed that I've spoken at length about several features that EA no longer include in modern FIFA titles. EA are extremely clever about adding features, always putting in enough to make the new game appeal to players, but not adding too much novelty as to drain them of new ideas for next year. But they have an ace up their sleeves, and they use it every year. And that ace is that they remove features and don't tell anyone about it. Then, after they wait for everyone to forget that it was a feature in FIFA in the first place, they announce it as a brand new feature, and everyone goes crazy for it. It all comes full circle, and it's back in FIFA, but as the saying goes, you can't please everyone. Around this time, PES released their first game, and immediately blew FIFA out of the water, almost tripling their sales numbers and changing the landscape of football and video games. But EA weren't awake to this yet. They were still cashing in on their golden IP. FIFA Football 2003 added more licensing and customization, as well as a club championship mode where you could play against the best of Europe in the biggest stadiums, with each club having its own unique atmosphere, as well as a freestyle control, incorporating the right stick on PlayStation controllers to allow for more player control, an idea that EA would expand upon greatly in the future, then murder in cold blood. Really, some things just never change. FIFA Football 2004 added, and I quote from the Wikipedia, "not much to the engine used in FIFA Football 2003. But hey, second divisions are here, but the sharp among you will have noticed that this isn't the first time the second divisions have been added to a FIFA title. This is the ace up the sleeve working its magic, and people got hyped for it anyway. You could also control two players at once in this version of FIFA, which was weird, and I'm gonna pretend it never happened for the sake of maintaining my own sanity. Wait, what's that? It's the number after 4. It's 5, baby. FIFA Football 2005 revamped career mode by, like, changing the menus and making it 15 years long, which it still is today, 20 years down the line. Thanks, EA. Create a Player is here for the very first time, allowing you to make your own avatar and have him dominate world football. Okay, fine. It's another recycled feature from years ago that they removed. You got me, okay? They also added the Mexican League, as well as its very own unique soundtrack, instead of just using actual good songs. It was was also the last ever game to release for the original PlayStation, and in just under 3 months, sold almost 5 million copies, rivaling the competition put up by PES, which were a strong contender against FIFA in this era. They had already been taking money and audience off EA up to this point, focusing strongly on gameplay, tactical nuance, and real football, as opposed to EA's style of getting all the licenses and having an arcade-style gameplay experience. But since PES didn't have licenses, they had to make up names. And I'd like to take a short intermission from this story to remind you of this artistic brilliance. Strap yourselves in, here we go. Roberto Larcos, Naldorinho, Beckham, Skulls, Owen, but with 2 N's at the end, Shearer, spelt with 3 E's and no A, Henry, Ruud van Mistelroom, Frank de Mol, Edwin Farkelhaar, and my personal favorite, Ryan Greggs. Despite these names sounding more fake than the one on my fake ID, PES's gameplay outshone EA's in the early 2000s, skyrocketing it to the most popular football game by 2005, and reminding EA that their position in the gaming stratosphere wasn't as safe as they'd initially thought it was. In its heyday, PES was the best football game, and the entire football gaming audience almost unanimously agreed. Because of this domination, and possibly in a bid to rival PES's gameplay, EA went the complete other direction, releasing maybe its most culturally impactful series ever. FIFA Street arrived on the market in early 2005 and got mixed reviews from critics initially, but nothing prepared the world for its impact. Have you had an argument with your friend? Did he say that your hair gel made you look like a wax figure? Well, boot up FIFA Street and settle the argument like real men. It was like boxing but virtual and had no real consequences, and audiences loved it. Its arcade playing style and huge skill ceiling cemented it as a certified HUD classic. But in the next mainstream FIFA release, EA had to shoot back at PES, and it did so in emphatic fashion. We're finally exiting the dark ages of FIFA titles. Now EA have to make a good game, or their bottom line is screwed. And if you know anything about EA, then you know that they are not going to let anyone's money go anywhere other than into their own pockets. FIFA 06 featured a complete overhaul of the game engine, improving control of gameplay. Designers rewrote over half of the game code to make the gameplay significantly better. And career mode? Well, strap in. They added personal details, budgets so you can't just buy everyone, staff and coaches, club sponsors which pay the club weekly to keep you afloat, managerial expectations, player morale, team chemistry, sacking, and in some cases, forced retirement. The lounge was also added, a competitive side to FIFA which had various winner stays on style game modes, as well as team management and retro features such as being able to unlock highlights from some of Europe's top divisions. This was a huge new addition to the FIFA line of games, and was certainly a risk, but there is something I haven't mentioned yet, something so foul that it's somewhat unbelievable to me. There is a part of the game which, according to some, EA stole. That part is the gameplay, and the source from which EA stole? Pro Evolution Soccer. After the turn of the 2010s, PES slowly became a shell of its former self, with sales charts reading like a eulogy, and a lot of this is down to PES themselves not focusing on what makes their game so good, the gameplay, and instead trying to become FIFA with licensing and motion capture. I guess you just can't please everyone, but in 2006, PES was peaking, and while FIFA 06 did well to reaffirm belief in FIFA as a franchise, PES were beginning to build up momentum, and EA had to do something with FIFA 07 that had never been done before. They had to be innovative and create their most beloved game ever, and they did just that. But this game isn't FIFA 07. Oh no, it might just be better. FIFA Street 2 released for PAL in March 2006, and while critics thought it was average, the FIFA community did not. Rapid gameplay, high-octane action, inputs being shoved into the controller to try and keep up with the technical level of your opponent, deep vein thrombosis from your 16th hour of playing the game, it had it all. And while a new audience wasn't particularly enthused by the release, returning audiences who had played FIFA games before adored this game. Cementing the audience they already had, EA were ready to springboard into the future of football games. But first they had a World Cup game to release with 127 playable national teams, most of which aren't even in FIFA today. I guess some things just never change. Finally, it's here. Rush down to your local GameStop and pick up a copy of FIFA 07 for your brand new Xbox 360 console. The game was completely renovated for modern console gaming, including way better graphics and controls, as well as Martin Tyler being on commentary. This was the first FIFA game to select popular songs to add to their soundtrack, the first FIFA game to have real-world results show up on screen in the game, the first FIFA game to have the practice pitch pop up while the game loads. There were a lot of firsts, okay? However, the Xbox 360 version had like 7 leagues because the new version of the game took so long to make. IGN awarded it Best Sports Game, as did Team Xbox, cementing FIFA's place on top of the sports world once again. The redemption arc had been completed, and EA's cash cow is once again producing sweet milk. Some things really do come full circle. So what did EA do? Rest on their laurels? Cash their checks? Or did they try to push on and leave PES in the dust? Well, they released FIFA 08 in September 2007 for the Xbox 360 and PS3 for the first time, and they added a Be a Pro mode where you could control just one player to dominate with, but only older consoles could select goalkeepers as well as outfield players. However, critic didn't care, with the game getting roughly an 8 out of 10 across the board and developing on the gameplay substantially from FIFA 07, such as adding right stick skills that were present in the FIFA Street series. So yeah, they kind of left PES in the dust, and they further stressed the impact of their development with FIFA Street 3, the end of the original FIFA Street line of games. It was basically the same as 1 and 2. Critics thought it was okay, but again, it was beloved by the FIFA fan base. Some things just never change. The cash grab was easy for EA. Their reputation was better than ever in the gaming space, and they were now the best sports game on the market. But if that was leaving PES in the dust, the future of FIFA would be leaving PES on another planet entirely, all thanks to one addition. FIFA 09 maintained the same pairing as FIFA 06 had on the cover of the game, with Ronaldinho and Rooney reprising their roles as FIFA's cover stars. However, EA's Star Game Mode was introduced in FIFA 09, a game mode which has made thousands of careers and has impacted the lives of millions worldwide, a mode which reputation precedes itself, and whose legend is littered with controversy, greed, and a severe lack of regard for human well-being. Welcome to the era of FIFA Ultimate Team, the greatest revolution in sports gaming. For the first time, tradable player cards were added, as well as currency, an economy, a market, and microtransactions. Yes, since the inaugural year of Ultimate Team, microtransactions have been present, where you could either put in the work in the game to get the best cards, or you could just pay often sizable fees of money to EA, and in return get the chance of earning them in packs. Unsurprisingly, people began to refinance their life savings in order to buy virtual trading cards, and all of a sudden, EA realized that they had stumbled across the mother of all boatloads of cash. So what did EA do? They cashed in. What did you expect? These guys have never changed. Ultimate Team, if released as an independent game, would be one of the biggest games in the world. And now EA had a way of making you spend money after buying their game in the most popular mode in their most popular franchise. However, this is quite blatant gambling, but the world hasn't noticed yet, and EA refused to acknowledge it as such, so we're still asleep to it right now. FIFA 09 also added gameplay innovations, just like all the other years, but this begins a new shift for EA. Peerless at the top of football gaming, and with a platform of millions at their fingertips, they began to make changes to make as much money as possible, and as we've learned throughout this video, you can never please everybody. Ultimate Team was added in March 2009, but by October 2009, with the release of FIFA 10, Ultimate Team had become a FIFA staple. Within 6 months, it had changed the landscape of sports gaming, and soon it would almost end it. But we're still in 2009. Manager mode was overhauled, and news articles were added describing events in the fictional world you had created. Wage budgets were introduced alongside transfer budgets, and the player growth system became automated. Basically, it's now really good for 2009. I can't wait to see what'll be done in the future. Imagine how different it'll be in 2023. It had basically never changed. Ultimate Team wasn't added to FIFA 10 until February 2010, as it was still a very basic form of the game mode, with coins being introduced and the trading section actually existing. Yes, you used to be able to trade players for other players. What a feature. Cries for it to be re-added have fallen upon deaf ears from EA, probably because it would decrease the amount of money they make, as there can be no sales tax on traded players. Also, this version of Ultimate Team cost an extra $5 to buy in the first place, but this is EA. You have to expect these things. The cover of FIFA 10 was no longer Ronaldinho and Rooney, but the latter with Theo Walcott and Frank Lampard in the UK and Ireland, ending the era of major progress for EA. But since it's a World Cup year, you already know there's a World Cup game. 2010 FIFA World Cup South Africa released for consoles, PSP, and the Wii in April 2010, and featured 199 different national teams, as well as a scenario mode where you could attempt to replicate the outcome of 55 different previous World Cup scenarios, as well as a captain your own country mode, aiming to bring your nation to World Cup glory. I remember this game from the Wii, and it was a banger, okay? 7-year-old me loved this piece of garbage. I would say that since FIFA 10, and even through today, FIFA is made for the sole purpose of making money, for reasons stated and implied in this video. But EA have been money hungry since the start with these World Cup games, and while they haven't maintained this series up to today, there are several examples of how they have been solely focused on money, and there was no bigger example than Ultimate Team, which was launched for good a month after the release of FIFA 11. Earlier in the video, I asked why people crawl back to FIFA games when they are fully aware that they're likely just a cash grab, and why another studio hasn't taken up the mantle from EA. And the answer to that question is that people simply love football, and there's no better option for a football video game on the market currently. And I hope that maybe even for a second, I can show you that FIFA is a great game and has come a long way, but it has several flaws. And you might not see them. After all, you can't please everybody, but some things never change unless you do something about it.